Old School Lane Casual Chats is brought to you by oldschoollane.blogspot.com and is associated with Channel Frederator, Manic Expression, the Comic Book Cast, and the Arun Mehta Show. Everyone, welcome to another episode of Casual Chats. I'm Patricia, and I am here with Whyboy and Nero from ToonGrin. Welcome back, guys.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, great to be here.
All right, so today we are going to be discussing about the newest movie in the Scooby-Doo franchise, simply known as Scoob, that just came out literally a few days ago as of the recording of this podcast. For those who are interested in watching it, you can see it in various streaming sites. It's pulling off a Trolls World tour in which it's releasing digitally first, as opposed to like releasing theatrically, like with Onward that Arun and I talked about a while back. So yeah, this is the first time in 3 years that we're talking about Scooby-Doo again, because we did that Scooby-Doo podcast, if you remember, with Creepy Taylor.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, it's hard to remember what it actually was about. It's been so long since we last talked about Scooby-Doo here.
Yeah, I think we were just like briefly talking about like, you know, how we first got introduced to the franchise and how we felt about like each of the series and the movies. But yeah, but this time around we're talking about the newest movie and the first theatrical movie in quite a while. When was the last time that Scooby-Doo was released in theaters?
2004.
Yep, with Monsters Unleashed.
Wow, that was 16 years ago? Jeez.
And Matthew Lillard, since then, has been playing Shaggy Rogers for about a decade now.
Wow, that's crazy.
Since the first Scooby movie, since 2000, I believe it came out.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't it 2002, I think?
Oh, yeah, that's 2002, that's it, right.
Yeah, so that's almost 20 years. Oh my goodness, yeah. Anyway, but yes, so I just want to let everybody know, massive spoilers ahead. So if you have not seen Scoob, you can rent it either on YouTube, Amazon Prime, Xfinity, various other streaming sites. I'll leave a link in the description below for you to check it out. And then you can listen in to see if you agree or disagree on our personal thoughts of it. And this is great because, as mentioned in that Scooby-Doo podcast, that, you know, Whyboy has seen every single Scooby-Doo movie ever released. That's over 30-something movies. So
yes.
Yeah.
How many shows is that? That's 13, I think, with the Guess Who?
Yeah, 13 now, I believe. 13 or 14.
Yeah, something along the lines. Yeah, 13 or 14 shows, almost 40 movies, lasting for over 50 years. My goodness. Yeah. Whew, okay.
And the only real Hanna-Barbera property to do so.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, if you remember, like, around the 80s and 90s, like, the Flintstones had this kind of staying power. Like, they had, like, around 6 or 7 different series involving with like the Flintstones meet the Frankenstones. There was the Pebbles and Bam Bam spin-off series. Then there was the Flintstones Kids or something, then the Pebbles and Bam Bam Cave Kids series. And then, you know, all the attempts of them trying to revitalize the Flintstones in some way, but they haven't been able to. I mean, the last time that I heard about that spin-off of the Pebbles and Bam Bam thing that they wanted to do, I don't know if it was like delayed or if it got canceled. I haven't heard anything about it in almost 2 years.
After that one, I heard that they wanted to turn it over to Seth MacFarlane.
Oh, yes,
And
right.
then that fell through because everyone's just like, no. But like collectively, like the fandom was just like, no.
A fair response.
Like, I don't want Family Guy with the Flintstones. Like I don't want Fred to like knock the hell out of Wilma.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
I wouldn't either. Like, and then there was also that Flintstones on the Rocks thing, and those comics that came out a few years ago. So yeah. Anyway, but we're getting way off topic. We're talking about Scooby here. But yeah, like Scooby-Doo has, when it came to like any Hanna-Barbera character, it doesn't even compare to anything else.
No, it's Batman.
Yeah, it is the Batman of Hanna-Barbera, which, you know, Batman and Scooby-Doo have actually collaborated a number of times. So yeah, I mean, they're perfect. Anyway, so yeah, let's get things started with the plot. So this is one that I wasn't expecting, because when I first saw the trailers, I was like, oh, this is like an origin story.
It was like the idea, like the first mystery, like what starts it.
Yeah, but it's not actually. It's not their first mystery. In fact, they've been doing it for quite a while. And apparently, like, I mean, it starts off like, you know, when they first met, you know, the 1 billionth content, you know, like, story about how they first met. I mean, if it wasn't from a pup named Scooby-Doo, in which they've known each other since they were like little kids, or any of the other like series in which they've known each other since high school or something, it's like at this point I don't really care. But in this one, it takes place in Venice, California, as opposed to like Cool's World or Crystal Cove like in the other ones. But
Coolsville.
Yeah, like from Pup Named Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, Coolsville with Commander Cool was like their main superhero, which is weird because it's like Commander Cool was like a Blue Falcon pastiche, but they own the rights to the character already. But I guess they didn't want to use it.
Yeah, that is a really weird one. Yeah, like, I mean, yeah, Commander Cool always felt like it was like Blue Falcon, and then you had Mellow Mutt, which is essentially Dino Mutt. It's like, why couldn't they just do, you know, Blue Falcon and Dino Mutt again? I don't understand it. I mean, the last time that I remember seeing Blue Falcon and Dino Mutt was in a Dexter's Laboratory episode.
Yeah, which I'm surprised, by the way, that wasn't the plot where it's like, man, this isn't cool. Let's make it cool. Because that's what the plot is to that Dexter's Lab episode is that, like, Blue Falcon shows up, he has the dog, and it's all janked up, and he's like, Dexter, fix my dog. Dexter fixed the dog. He's like, oh, the dog's retarded. Well, I'll give you a cool dog. And he gives him a very 90s-esque redesign of what a cool Dynamite would be. It's got razor-sharp teeth and blood red eyes, and it's, like, really slick-looking. And then it's, like, ultra-violent, like an Ed 209 from RoboCop.
Right.
Which is, you would think like, oh, because that's what they do now with the things you like is the thing you like isn't cool anymore, so we need to modernize it.
Yeah, especially with the whole 90s edgy, radicalness, yo. Like, yeah. I can understand that, because I recently saw the you know Your Voices, the behind the scenes of Scooby-Doo, where they had like the interviews with Don Messick and Casey Kasem, Heather North, Nicole Jaffe, and Frank Welker, as well as Gary Owens and Frank Welker again, because you know, he also provided the voice of Dino Mutt as well as Fred. And this was like before he did Scooby, because in that interview Don was still alive. But yeah, it was actually really interesting about like how Blue Falcon was in the original. It was like, you know, the Scooby-Doo Dino Mutt Hour, and you know, in conjunction with like Scooby-Doo episodes, there will be an episode with Blue Falcon and Dino Mutt, and it was essentially like it was just two bumbling superheroes who couldn't save anybody to save their lives, and that's what made it funny. It was a comedy. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, it wasn't too much of a surprise that they decided to go in this completely different direction, because here's the thing, like, there are so many Hanna-Barbera references. If you are a Hanna-Barbera geek and you're looking for the minute details of every single Hanna-Barbera property, you are going to love this movie.
You're going to see them everywhere, from posters to just like messages on like certain buildings and all that. They're just freaking everywhere.
You might also say it's a crutch and kind of distracting.
I mean, that's possible, sure. I mean, like, it's like, I mean, I'm just gonna name a handful of them, because I don't want to spoil, like, we're gonna spoil the plot, but we're not gonna spoil every single Easter egg that's there. I mean, like, there's a poster of the Hex Girls there. There's two restaurants named Hannah's and Barbara's for Hanna-Barbera. There's Takamoto Bowling, which is Isao Takamoto, who was the original art designer for Scooby-Doo. In the bowling alley, Scooby-Doo actually does the Fred Flintstone Twinkle Toes when he's rolling the ball.
Yeah.
There's references to Casey Kasem and Don Messick with the Messick Mountain, which was the last location of where the skull was. Captain Caveman is in the movie where he's talking about like, oh, we're looking for the and they're asking about like we're looking for the skull, and then he's like, oh, you're looking for the slag hoople.
What is the slag hoople?
The slag hoople is the maiden name of Wilma. I'm a nerd. I know exactly what reference to.
I was just asking because I had no idea what that was. Just like, did you say a random funny word?
Wilma Flintstone's maiden name is Slag Hoople. Her mother was Pearl Slag Hoople.
There you go. That's what it was. Yeah, I mean, and yeah, that's just like literally, that's a handful of references. There's literally so many of them. I can't even say the rest of them, but anyway.
There's some videos that list about 150 plus references.
Oh my goodness, there was that much?
I only liked 2 though.
Okay, what were they?
I like the Hex Girls one because that means they exist in universe, which is very cool to me because they're very cool characters. They've been so popular with the community for so long that they've been talking about doing a spin-off for them for like 10 years already, and they still haven't.
Oh man.
And then the other one was, if you look at the poster for the Hex Girls, under it says like they're the premier band you're gonna go see, but like opening for them is the Impossibles, which is Fluid Man, Coil Man, and Multi-Man.
That's right. Yeah, the Impossibles. There was like another team of superheroes that Hanna-Barbera created. Speaking of like superheroes, even in the end credits when Blue Falcon starts off his new team, and you get to see like the new members of the team. There was the Great Ape. There was Jabberjaw, Adam Ant, and let's see what was the fourth? Captain Caveman. There we go. Yeah. So yeah, there's anyway, but yeah, we're just. I mean, for Easter egg nerds, you're gonna have a ball with this one. But anyway, let's get to the main story. So it starts off with actually surprisingly like Shaggy's like really lonely and depressed, and I mean it's even like pretty obvious when he's like listening in on his iPod, like listening in like various songs. Like there's the Backstreet Boys song like "Show Me the Meaning of Being Lonely." Then there's One Is the Loneliest Number, and all that kind of stuff. And, I mean, like, out of all the characters who would be, like, really lonely, I mean, I wouldn't expect Shaggy to be of all people, but I guess it is to be expected because, this is when he first meets up with Scooby at the beach.
The only idea that he's an introvert. Mm-hmm. I would think Velma would be the introvert in the group just because she's very reclusive in terms of, like, the rest of the cast. Because Shaggy seems like, in all these other interpretations, he's very open, he's very laid back, he's a hippie. Or he's what an adult man thinks a hippie is.
Right.
Yeah, but I've seen like interpretations of him like in this and also in some of the prequel movies. The one that The Mystery Begins, where he is played off as just sort of the slacker type that is just sort of the outside of everything. That's why he doesn't have any friends. He does like dress the weirdest. He has the messy hair and all that. He basically stands out from everybody, so he's just like, keep that weird kid away from us.
Okay, that does make sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we see Scooby inside of a Greek restaurant where he steals a huge chunk of meat that is used for gyros. And the police officer is chasing after him. And then he, like, gets the, the sand and buries the gyro and himself. And then Shaggy's, like, talking to the sand hills, like if they were actual people. And then finally, Scooby comes out and he greets himself, and, he even brings out the hunk of meat to have as a sandwich, which I'm sure if Casey Kasem was alive, that he wouldn't be really happy with the fact that Shaggy's a meat eater.
He had that problem during the filming of Zombie Island. He said, I don't like that Shaggy isn't vegan like I am, and I will not come back and play the character unless you change that. So WB was like, oh, okay, hey, Billy West, congratulations, you have a job. And it's like, why'd you call their bluff? What do you think, they're not going to replace you? It's a studio. They don't care.
Yeah, which is kind of ironic because Billy West is also a vegan.
Yeah, and Billy West
but he also knows how to shut up.
Exactly, yeah.
Billy West is like, yeah, but, I like having a check.
Yeah.
Very true, very true.
Yeah, and Shaggy is not me.
That's like Dan Castellaneta bitching at like Fox. Oh, I don't think Homer should eat this much. Oh yeah, let's just change this character that's been around for like 30 years. You're right, Dan. That's what we're gonna do. Really? No, get the hell out.
Yeah. I mean, no, don't get me wrong. I mean, if he had certain morals, like, you know, if this is how his interpretation of the character is, then fair enough. But, you know, in the end of the day, it's a business. And some people, you know, they have something on the script that says, okay, well, you know, in this version of Shaggy, he eats meat, so we're just going to keep it that way. I mean, especially with Zombie Island, where it is New Orleans, and New Orleans is known for their meat cuisines. It's going to be a little bit hard to circumvent that.
Yeah. And to be also quite fair, ever since the beginning, he has been eating sandwiches and all that all the time. And
sure.
If you go back to the original show, he's not putting like all lettuce slices in there. There are clearly meat slices going in within his sandwiches.
Yeah, exactly. And for those who are wondering, no, this is like before, you know, the vegetarian meat that we would know of today even existed.
Yeah.
So anyway,
in the 60s, man, he was eating anything.
That's true. Yeah. Anyway, so then we have, you know, the police officer catching, you know, Scooby and Shaggy together. And, you know, he's saying to Shaggy, I'm going to take this dog with me to the pound because he's been causing nothing but trouble. And then Shaggy's like, but this dog is my dog. And then he's asking him, like, oh, what's his name? And he's like, oh, his name is Scooby because he sees Scooby snacks. So apparently in this, you know, continuity, that Scooby got the name from the snacks, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Which, okay, fair enough.
They play with that and Be Cool Scooby-Doo, actually, where, like, the origin of Scooby Snacks comes from.
Yeah, for sure. And then the police officer just, like, walks off and he's like, oh, well, you know, I can't do anything about it if your dog already has a middle name and, you know, oh, you're free of the charges. It's like, he literally took a hunk of meat that would serve at least 1,000 people in a Greek restaurant and he's like, he's free to go.
It's fine. It's fine.
I mean, pose the bigger question. That dog could frickin' talk.
That'd be why I would let him go. So like, that dog can talk. It's fine. It's fine. Let it live.
Like it's funny that Shaggy's just like, I have trouble talking to people. Yeah, but when a random stray canine comes up to you and starts talking with a speech impediment, nothing.
No, nothing. Pretty much.
Well, he's not a person, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's good.
It's okay. Scooby doesn't have a soul.
Right. Oh my gosh. Okay. So yeah, so basically we have, you know, them becoming friends and, you know, it's Halloween, so they're going out trick-or-treating and, you know, they're dressed up as Blue Falcon and Dino Mutt because, you know, very similar to like in The Incredibles where Incrediboy like looked up to the Mr. Incredible. He has like pictures of him and newspaper clippings and all that kind of stuff all over his wall saying like Blue Falcon is my hero and he's the greatest of them all and all that kind of stuff. And so then we have like these skateboarding punks who steal Shaggy's candy and then throw it into a haunted house. And it's like, apparently they're like anti-Halloween kids. It's like,
they're
what?
A pair of ICP fans. For some reason, two juggalos come out of nowhere and decide like, you shouldn't eat this candy. We're saving you from cavities. And I'm just thinking where it's like, Violent J and Shaggy 2 Dope have openly said like, we don't condone like bullying of any kind. That's one of the reasons why they like the Juggalo community is because there's a very big emphasis on like family in the Juggalo community. It's like, it's like the 90s, but they have like smartphones and iPods. That wasn't really the 90s, wasn't it? Didn't that stuff come more towards like the
2000s?
The 2000s, like so like time frame wise, the movie is a little like.
Yeah, it moved itself up a lot.
Yeah, like, I mean, even from the very beginning where, as mentioned before, Shaggy had an iPod listening to music, and it was like a modern iPod. This isn't like a 2000s iPod where... It
was like an Apple iPod.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was like pretty modern, actually.
Yeah, but we're the one with a touch wheel sort of thing, so it's not as modern as it is
right,
nowadays.
Exactly. Right.
But he was still listening, too, if you look at his apps. He's got like cool songs from the 60s, sweet songs from the 70s. And it's like, oh, because that's what the characters are from. They're from like the 60s and 70s.
Right, exactly.
Because every modern 11-year-old in California is listening to songs from the 60s. It's like the most real song he listens to is the Backstreet Boys one where you're like, okay, I can maybe get that one. But like 60s and 70s, that's pushing it for a modern kid.
Sure, yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so after the whole candy fiasco, this is where we get introduced to Fred, to Velma, and to Daphne. And we have Fred dressing up as the Knight, the Black Knight, which is a reference to one of the first monsters in Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Then we have Daphne dress up as Wonder Woman because Warner Brothers, they have the DC license so they can be able to make their movies.
She's
and
one
then
of our few movies that was successful, so we might as well reference her.
It's a shame. And then finally we have Velma dressing up as Ruth Ginsburg, which, that's that's actually pretty funny, because that would be typical Velma to be dressing up as like a really smart woman in the Supreme Court. It's like it's like that scene in Tangled, in which the father gives the daughter a book, and it just so happens to be like the most important women in history, and one of them was Ruth Ginsburg. So yeah, although there are some references that Shaggy was bringing up, like, are you supposed to be like Judge Judy or something? Which no kid is gonna get that reference.
Well, they reference Harry Potter because Warner Brothers has the film rights to Harry Potter.
Yep.
I know. And I would say Judge Judy is a pretty apt reference. I know a lot of kids who watch Judge Judy a lot with their parents and all that. And Judge Judy is basically childhood sort of like Judge, which is like, that's a real judge to me.
Wow, okay.
Taking the justice system and turning it into a mock television show.
Sure. Yeah, that is true. There is that Harry Potter reference, and then Shaggy was mentioned like, oh, Velma would so be in Slytherin, which she would not. She is so Ravenclaw, and Scooby and Shaggy are so Hufflepuff, for sure.
Daphne's Hufflepuff, man, compassionate, loving.
That's true. That's
Fred is Gryffindor. I didn't even say Shaggy and Scooby are Gryffindor, because when push comes to shove, and back even in the '60s show, Shaggy and Scooby did step up.
That is true. I guess they would be like akin to Neville Longbottom, in which he was in Gryffindor as well.
You wouldn't expect them to be Gryffindor because you expect, like, oh, they're cowards. It's not cowards, man. If you had to deal with that crap on a daily basis, you'd be like that. And keep in mind, they're the only ones in terms of like the spin-off shows. They regularly dealt with supernatural stuff, actual ghosts and demons and monsters and warlocks. You would be so screwed up if that was your life.
That is very true. Yeah, and the closest thing that we get to a mystery in this movie is actually in that first act, where, they're actually kids and they go into the haunted house and they see a ghost, and then they have the classic chase, and then they find out that the ghost is a fake, and then they unmask him, and then they have that classic meddling kids thing. And everything else after this is not a mystery. There is literally not a major mystery in this movie. It's more like an action movie that's building up to something even bigger later.
Yeah, the only mystery aspect to it is just basically asking the question of just like, why is Dick Dastardly from Wacky Racers trying to kidnap Scooby? And that's it.
Yeah, pretty much. And then, I don't want to sound pretty mean when I say this, but there were a lot of times in which this movie reminded me of the 2002 live action movie. Like, think about it.
It reminds us of Monsters Unleashed, the sequel to the 2002 live action movie.
It reminded me of both of them.
You're absolutely right. It is a combination of both, because if you remember from the first live action movie, that it's about that Scooby was brought into this mysterious island because he was the key to unlocking something, and that, he was the chosen one. And then we have, Scooby and Shaggy getting into a fight and getting into bickering and arguing. And I guess with the 2004 Monsters Unleashed, it brings back a lot of classic monsters in that montage in the beginning of the movie. And there's like, a whole bunch of other things. And sadly, very similar to both of those movies, it has so many dated pop culture references.
Yeah.
This movie feels like an early 2000 DreamWorks film.
Yeah. Especially with the cast. Like, the cast in this movie is not, the typical cast that we've known for the past 20 years. Like, Matthew Lillard's not Shaggy. Grey DeLisle Griffin is not Daphne. Frank Welker's Scooby.
But not Freddy.
Yeah, but not Freddy, and not Dino.
Zac Efron.
Yeah. That's actually really interesting. I'm actually curious about what your thoughts are on these, new voices as the characters. So we have Zac Efron as Fred, Will Forte as Shaggy, Amanda Seyfried as Daphne, and Gina Rodriguez as Velma.
Well, there is the thought that basically just goes into it, like, just to push this thought aside, where it's just like, it's really crappy of WB to be like, hey, look at all these real actors. Get out of here, voice actors. Get out of here. Except for you, Frank Welker.
That is so insulting, because the idea is we got Frank because that's nostalgia baiting, because Frank's been incidentally, he's not been the original voice of Scooby, because Scooby-Doo was played by Don Messick. Frank was Fred, though, from, like, the 60s, and has been Fred ever since, with the exception of, like, live-action adaptations.
Sure.
Or like Pup Named Scooby-Doo. He didn't play, Fred Jones in that.
No.
But he's so unanimous with the character, and then without even telling the voice actors, they completely replaced everybody except Frank, who they're just using as a ploy to be like, well, we want to satiate the fandom. If you're going to satiate the fandom, Matthew Lillard has been Shaggy Rogers for a decade, for 10 years. Gray Delisle has been Daphne Blake for 20 years. And yeah, Velma Dinkley is everybody, because she's been so rotated out, where it's like Kate Micucci has played her for like 5 years. Linda Cardellini played her in the live action movies, and I think played her in a few of the animated films. She gets the most replacements for whatever reason. Yeah. But if you're gonna bank on like, well, we want to do like, nostalgia baiting, then you should have gotten Matt and Gray, because for a lot of kids for those of us who are like my age, and, who did, like, watch reruns of the old show, the majority of that cast is dead. Yeah. So I know you're not going to get them back. But for a lot of kids who are now adults, Matthew, Gray, those are the voices of those characters. It would be like if you made a Simpsons movie, and it was like, okay, we're making a Simpsons film. Let's get real actors now. Goodbye, Dane Castellaneta, and like goodbye the rest. Like, we're replacing you with real actors. It's insulting, and it's disgusting that they didn't report it to them.
Yeah, like that's the saddest thing, seeing their tweets where Matthew was just crushed by it, and also Gray Delisle just like couldn't watch the movie at all because she was just so heartbroken by it.
I don't blame her, especially if you guys know the story about Gray Delisle. So, for those who don't know, the original voice, one of the, I would say like during the Mook animation. So, during the Mook animation films, which was, Zombie Island and Witch's Ghost, and I think that... Yeah, I think that was those three, I believe, were the last. 3 or 4 were the last ones. So, the person who voiced as Daphne was Mary Kay Bergman, and Gray was actually taught by Mary Kay, with voice acting and like, getting advice and workshops and all that kind of stuff. But when she took her life away, then Gray essentially was called in to play as Daphne, and she was portraying as Daphne not only in her own way but to honor Mary Kay Bergman, who had been the previous voice of Daphne, in her honor. So the fact that she was completely removed from the movie and they didn't even tell her about it, it is absolutely disgusting. And yes, and you could also argue about like with Velma, it's like, they've rotated the character so many times. Fair enough. Yeah. But the fact that they didn't even tell them, and it's like, oh, we're just replacing you with, other actors because you don't even matter. It's like, just give me a break.
Like, I can understand celeb casting for Dick Dastardly or Dynamite or Blue Falcon, because let's be honest, most of those characters, mainstream, like modern children, because like the truth is this movie's made for children. Modern children have no idea who the hell any of these people are. Like, maybe they'll know Dick Dastardly because there was a Wacky Racers cartoon in like 2017.
Yeah.
And even then, I would debate they probably don't really know who Dick Dastardly is.
They don't, because from what I understand, isn't that cartoon exclusively on Boomerang?
Yeah, so it's already based on a niche show that is very old, and then it's put on a service that, incidentally, not everyone has access to, so it becomes even further niche.
Yeah,
it is. And I've heard some really good reviews on it, which is a shame that, I can't easily access it unless I get a Boomerang account.
Yeah, me and Nero watched 2 episodes of it. It's pretty solid.
It's it's delightful. If you like Be Cool, where it's like it's a satire of the property.
Right.
It's very self-aware and very funny, and that's even one of the reasons why we love Be Cool so much, is because Be Cool is just a satire of the franchise.
Well, also still being a good mystery show and everything.
Yeah. So yeah, so I mean, personally for me, I would have to say that Amanda Seyfried as Daphne. I mean, she sounded pretty good. It's just a shame that she wasn't in a lot of scenes that were like
Yeah.
very important. Maybe with the exception of her putting together the robot's head with the vacuum cleaner.
That's literally 3/5 of Mystery Inc. for the whole movie. Is that like we split the team up? We got all these celebrities. Go over there.
Split them up.
What was the point of that? I don't even like. You spent money on Zac Efron to play Fred. If Freddy was going to be this far removed, just
Yeah.
get Fred to do it to save the money.
He was my least favorite out of all of them
Because
because
he was Freddie Prinze Jr.'s Fred. He wasn't
He
actual
was.
Fred Jones.
He was exactly Freddie Prinze Jr. Fred. That was just hilarious to me. Just how dude he was.
Patricia,
Yes.
if you ever get a chance, look up graphics. Just look up still images of how Fred is designed in Scoob and how he dresses in Monsters Unleashed. It's almost shot for shot verbatim the same design.
Oh wow, I gotta check this out. Speaking of concept art, we'll get to that later. But and when I listen to Gina Rodriguez as Velma, it's very similar to how Gina performs as Carmen Sandiego in the Netflix series because she also voices as her. Although I
Yeah.
do like that the fact I admit as somebody who is Hispanic, I do like that they decided to give a little bit more variety as making Velma Hispanic because that has never been done before as far as I
She wasn't nebulously white.
right.
Which is what everyone in Mystery Inc. is. It's like everyone here is nebulously white. What nationality are any of them? Well, white.
Well, to be fair, it was the 60s and
Yeah.
Oh no, I get it. I'm just saying where it's like I actually appreciate. I know people get upset where it's like, oh, you race bent Velma. Well, one, it's not in your face. She only says like one thing in Spanish, and I was actually annoyed that it wasn't like jinkies in Spanish.
I would have liked that.
I would have liked that too. That would have been funny. She never actually says her catchphrase in the movie. Fred says her catchphrase in the movie for some reason.
That was really weird.
We're going to reference this thing you like, but the right person didn't make the reference. Shut up and be grateful for the reference.
Right.
What? I think her being Spanish is great. If anything, I'm disappointed where it's like, I really wish there was something in her design that reflected some of her heritage.
Yeah, like if she kept the Dinkley last name, we could assume that her father was of maybe a Caucasian descent, and then her mother is Hispanic. Then I would have liked to have seen
what
a
race. What race is Dinkley? Let's be honest.
Oh my God.
That sounds like a word that was made up on the spot where they were like, it's a fun sounding last name for a character, Dinkley, and it's like, is that like Irish or is that what is that?
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea.
Blake sounds very very wasp. Like Daphne's name sounds like a rich white person. Daphne Blake.
I mean, she is rich.
She is a rich white person. And, Fred has like the most generic name, Fred Jones.
Yeah.
Well, and also Shaggy. His last name is Rogers.
Yeah, but his first name's Norville.
Yeah, Norville Rogers.
That's true.
Norville Rogers, yeah. I mean, like I have been a champion for the idea of like it might not kill to add some degree of race to the characters, just because I'm a firm believer that accents grant personality.
Sure.
One character I always like to bring up is if you've ever seen the 2012 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
which I have.
Rocksteady, they make him into a Russian.
Yeah.
And by giving him the accent, it doesn't change the character. He's still a big, goofy lummox that is a Rhino Man. But something about that accent, you're like, there's a bit more character now.
Mm-hmm.
Just because the accent's there. And that's the thing is that a lot can go in a voice. This is why I hold voice actors so prolific over celebrity casting. Because to me, it's like, why do we hire celebrities? Because it's an easy way. You got to tell a producer, you got to get a producer to give you money. Well, if I say Dwayne Johnson's in this, you're going to give me money now, right? Because it's Dwayne Johnson. Yeah. Never mind the question, is Dwayne good for the role? Who cares? It's Dwayne Johnson. Now go watch the Doom movie. That's terrible.
Oh, no.
It's not like in Moana where Dwayne Johnson was not only the first choice for Maui, they were banking. The guys who created Moana are the same dudes who created Aladdin.
Yeah.
And they were like, we chose Robin. as the inspiration for the genie. If we couldn't get Robin, everything was going to fall apart because we were banking on him to play the genie. And then they did the same thing again when they're like, we were banking on Dwayne to be Maui. And if he said no, we were screwed.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, like, I think for most of the cast, they kind of suck. Not in that way of like, you're all horrible. It's a degree of, it's really weird to be like, Scooby sounds like Scooby. And then everyone else is completely different. And for three of them, you can't even enjoy because Fred, Velma, and Daphne are shafted in this movie and pushed a majority out of the film to be on their own separate adventure. So they don't even get to interact with Shaggy and Scooby all that much. So the character development of Mystery Inc. happens completely off screen. So we don't even get to enjoy them growing closer and becoming like a family. Yeah. So that's really disappointing. We don't get to enjoy their voice casting or voice acting because they don't get to do anything. And that sucks. And we know they're good performers. Zac Efron's good in most things he's in. Gina, Carmen Sandiego's a great show. She's wonderful in that show. I'm not really familiar with the actress who plays Daphne.
Oh, well, Amanda Seyfried has been in various movies over the years. And, like,
as Daphne Blake, you can't really get a read for her. The people you can get a read for are Ken Jeong as Dynamite, who, in my opinion, is great.
He is amazing on this, by the way.
He really did an amazing job in this movie.
I have a problem with Marky Mark as a human being. That said...
Oh, my God.
Yeah. I'm not going to get into it. But, like... He certainly captured playing a douchebag as the Blue Falcon, and if that was the intent, mission accomplished, because he came off as a spoil, rich, like, 1%er. Like, he completely, it's like, oh, if that was what the character was supposed to be, I mean, he nailed it.
Yeah.
Whoever played Dee Dee Sykes, completely wasted.
And here's the thing, like, Dee Dee Sykes is actually a character from Captain Caveman.
One of the Teen Angels. There's a reference on her Blue Falcon uniform. She has a logo on her arm of a T with, like, angel wings and a halo, and I'm just sitting there, it's like, I know that's an Easter egg, but, like, in universe, what's the internal logic of that? Like, she's not part of the Teen Angels. She never even meets Captain Caveman in the movie.
I mean, she does, but she fights him.
No. Brian fights Captain Caveman. She never interacted with him.
No, she did, because there was that scene in which when Blue Falcon was like crashing to the wall, and Scooby and Shaggy were like pretty much defeated, and then she grabs her rod and then she's like fighting Captain Caveman. It's like, I love a challenge.
Yeah, she does fight Captain Caveman for just a bit, and that's it.
Yeah, for just a bit, but that's pretty much it. Like, I mean, again, I'm not gonna go into like continuity. It's like, oh, how does this make sense? It's like, I mean, it's supposed to be an Easter egg, which, okay, fair enough.
I'm more upset less about continuity and more about internal continuity, because the whole foundation to this film was the idea is they want to create a shared Hanna-Barbera cinematic universe. My guess is because, simply put, Warner Brothers is jealous that one of their biggest competitors is Disney, and Disney has two very viable franchises that are shared universes. They have Star Wars and they have the Marvel stuff.
Yes.
And they have animated films that come out regularly and always gross very well.
Mm-hmm. They do.
But Warner Brothers
does not.
Warner Brothers simply does not. They screwed up their DC cinematic universe. It's very split down the middle, almost leaning towards just being trash for a lot of people, at least for a vocal majority. You have the idea of a Hanna-Barbera cinematic universe. You want to create a shared universe on properties most people aren't even aware of in modern culture because you buried them. So that in and of itself is a problem.
That is.
And the closest thing to a shared universe they've had that's been successful is the CW stuff, and maybe Harry Potter, because they had like 8 Harry Potter movies and whatever that spinoff is with the guy who talks to animals or whatever.
You mean Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them?
Yeah, and that's it. Like, that's really, like, their DC cinematic universe is terrible in terms of like how many films, and if you consider just from the business prospect how much money they've made. I mean, Marvel is almost always hitting in the high millions to billions mark at this point for each of their properties. They had a movie that had the Trinity: Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. These are considered the pillars, the icons. For goodness sake, in the comic community, DC has said Harley Quinn is the fourth pillar of this universe. She's one of the founding pillars of our universe, and her movie was a box office bomb.
Yeah.
The Justice League is supposed to be an ensemble cast movie, and that was a box office bomb.
Oh, and lest we forget, the Snyder Cut is going to be released.
And by the way, giving in to people who bullied other people online, yeah, that sends a good message. That's like Disney. Oh, I'm sorry. You were bullied how much on Twitter for your character? Well, don't worry. In episode 9, we cut that character out.
Oh.
So let's vindicate all the bullies that were loud.
Yay!
And keep in mind, episode 8, despite how much criticism it got, made $1 billion.
Yep.
And Disney still was like, we got to make everybody happy. You still made $1 billion. Who cares if they're happy? You made $1 billion. And that's the things like now the idea. I think conceptually the idea of what Scoob wants to do is great. I highly recommend, and I keep pitching this comic because I just read it because I knew this movie was coming out. I highly recommend reading Future Quest and Future Quest Presents, where it's literally the idea of a Lovecraftian horror is invading the world, and it's the combined efforts of Hanna-Barbera properties meeting each other and working together to fight a Lovecraftian nightmare. And it's the Quest family, Birdman, Space Ghost, the Galactic Trio, the Impossibles, Frankenstein Jr. They just gather a whole bunch of characters, and they work together to save the world from an invading demonic force. And then you get to this movie where it's like, man, you'd be lucky if this even gets a sequel.
And they were kind of hinting on that too. If you saw the end credits.
Oh, they were banking on it. They are banking on because here's the thing. I believe, and it's funny because I know that in the production of this movie, and Taylor, maybe you'll remember. Do you remember when Scoob was originally being pitched in like the 2015s, where it's like they're gonna Mystery Inc. is joining like a super secret like organization.
Yeah, that was the exact quote that people would pitch this movie as. They're going to join a super secret organization to stop some mad scientists. It was something like that.
And Scoob was an acronym for something. What was it an acronym to? I don't know. But it was going to be an acronym.
Yeah, and also from what I've seen, now I want to get to this point. The concept art. I've started seeing concept art online, and I've seen that there have been various pictures of scenes or characters that were supposed to be in the movie, but are not. Like, it was supposed to be less focused on Blue Falcon and more on wacky races. We have a scene in which when Scooby and Shaggy are with Penelope Pitstop. So it's like, man, I mean, why didn't we get that movie instead? That looks way more interesting.
I believe I know the reason why.
Oh, please share.
Superhero movies are in.
Oh.
So let's make a superhero movie. And who do we have? Now, mind you, they have a ton. Birdman, Space Ghost, yes, Blue Falcon, the Galaxy Trio, you could argue the Herculoids, you could argue that they're superheroes in their own right.
Absolutely.
I don't know if Thundar's Hanna-Barbera. I think Thundar might have just been produced by them. I don't think they own Thundar the Barbarian. But the fact is, superheroes are in. They are, or at least for some reason, Hollywood seems to think superheroes are box office gold and not seem to realize it's not that they're box office gold. It's that Disney and Marvel, they didn't crack some magic formula. They didn't find the fountain of youth. They didn't find the Holy Grail. They take their time and they kind of know what the hell they're doing.
And they know how to craft their universes.
And their films are safe. Their Marvel films aren't particularly groundbreaking or like really experimental, and that's fine. They play it safe. They make safe commercials for toys, and they work as like fun movies that have great acting and great characterization. And that's really all they need to be. And that's fine. It's every other studio that seems to have a very big problem to not understand this, because it's like Universal. We have all these Universal monsters. We're going to make a superhero team out of them. Oh, no one saw Dracula Untold. Well, that's okay. We're going to relaunch the Dark Universe with the Mummy. Nobody cared. I guess we're just going to call it quits.
Yeah.
Wow, you guys are really banking on the idea of the novelty. of a shared universe of monster people. Like, and the thing is, I like the idea of monster people as superheroes. I myself am writing a book about that right now, actually, because I saw Dracula Untold and the Mummy, and I was like, wow, this sucks. I know how to do it right. And that was literally why I'm doing it. It's like, oh, you did a sucky job. I'll do a better one. And yet, it's not a hard idea to do a shared universe. And again, Future Quest. Oh, it's very simple. Because you just have to have the right characters. And the fact of the matter is, the only reason why it's Mystery Inc. in this movie is because if you sold the pitch to a Blue Falcon movie, most people are probably not going to go see it. Because modern kids don't know what a Blue Falcon is. And that's the reality of it. Modern children don't know what a Blue Falcon is. Even though, at the same time, executives have the mentality of, kids are stupid, so we can throw anything in front of them and they'll watch it. Which is funny, because then by logic, you should be able to sell a Blue Falcon movie to children easily.
Yeah.
And yet, here we are.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. I just want to say that when it comes to like trying to start a universe, it takes a lot of time. You have to ease people in right before you can do that. Like, when they were doing the cinematic universe, it took them a long time to put this stuff together. I mean, if Iron Man failed, you can kiss that thing goodbye. I mean, it worked as a standalone film when it first came out. And when people saw, you know, as the movie started connecting bit by bit, then they were like, oh, this is all connecting together. So it was building up to it. If you are going to build it up as a Hanna-Barbera cinematic universe, then sure, go all for it. But don't take away the core of what made Scooby-Doo Scooby-Doo, just so that you can be able to possibly make more movies for later.
And, well, that's the DC problem. Because,
I know.
Man of Steel, that actually works as its own movie. I don't care for the film, but it's still its own film. It's not telling you you're going to get other stuff. But Batman v Superman, that's a Justice League launch, and you get to see all the characters get launched in that movie. It's a setup for Darkseid. It's a setup for Flashpoint. It's too much.
It is.
And the thing is, if you want to do a Scooby-Doo movie, that's going to be the launching point. I don't think it's a bad idea. I think Scooby-Doo is the wrong choice on a narrative level for a shared universe. I think in terms of a profit idea, I get it. It's the Batman of the franchise. That's why you do it. But I think what they could have or should have done, they probably should have gone with Scooby-Doo teaming up with the Quest family.
That would have been really good.
Because Johnny Quest's family, they're super scientists. So you could say, Bat and Quest builds a time machine. So you could travel back in time and meet the Flintstones. Or that's how they get Captain Caveman or something. Or they go to Mystery Island, which is also in and of itself an Easter egg because they produced a live-action show called Mystery Island.
Right.
And the Quest family could find Mystery Island. Maybe Dr. Zen, who is arguably Johnny Quest's family, that's their like big arch nemesis, is Dr. Zen. Mm-hmm. This badass like Chinese doctor. And maybe Dr. Zen wants the skulls of Cerberus because to him, they're an energy source. Because in this movie, they mentioned that they give off some kind of heat signature, which implies some form of energy. Maybe Dr. Zen's like, oh, this skull, this artifact gives off an energy like 100-time fold more powerful than plutonium. Imagine what I could do with my empire if I funded that. And then he hires a mercenary named Dick Dastardly. So then maybe the secret agent that is working with Mystery Inc., maybe Penelope Pitstop is a secret agent who also runs as a racer.
There you go.
Yeah, there are many ways you can go about it, but just like the core of Scoob right now is basically just like it's a spy superhero movie to trying to race across the world to get these 3 skulls. It's really not a Scooby movie at all. It's
not. The last time that Warner Brothers tried to make something that was not essentially superhero related was Lunatics Unleashed.
I like that show.
Yeah, so I mean I know that a lot of people don't. So I understand that they probably thought that let's see if we can mix things up a bit. It's like superheroes are really popular right now, so let's see if we can put Scooby-Doo in there because out of all the Hanna-Barbera properties, he's the most recognizable out of all of them.
Superheroes are popular right now. We should make something like that. Look at all these superheroes you have. Scooby-Doo could be a superhero. You got Space Ghost, you got Birdman, you got the Blue Falcon, you got the Galaxy Trio, you got the Hercules. Okay, so I'm gonna go sit down because clearly I'm not needed in this meeting, and then I just sit down, fold my legs, smile.
Yeah, but it's not even Scooby-Doo as a hero. It's not even Blue Falcon as the hero. It's Brian.
Brian. Okay, so yeah, the big twist is that it's not really the Blue Falcon from the original. It's his son. We don't even see the original Blue Falcon anywhere in this movie because he retired to Palm Springs.
Yeah.
I bet you if he was still alive, they would have had, or I would have at least casted this, I would have had Adam West play his father. I would have had him play the old Blue Falcon. I would have established, because they don't establish this very well, I would have established that Brian's dad was a superhero in, like, the 60s.
Yeah.
Because it's funny, for all this, we want to build a shared universe. So, we see toys of the Blue Falcon, but he was also, like, real? And we don't play with that. It's not like we're fighting the Blue Falcon's nemesis. We're fighting Dick Dastardly from Wacky Races.
Yeah, from Wacky Races. I mean... Exactly. So that's like 4 or 5 different franchises like colliding into one. You have Captain Caveman, you have Scooby-Doo, you have Wacky Races, and you have other like burst up in as Blue Falcon and Dynamite because they had the the Scooby-Doo Dynamite Hour. So I mean that's like 4 or 5 different shows just like clash together into one, trying to be like really cohesive. And I could see it like, for maybe people who don't know about any of these characters, sure, maybe they could work. But for fans like us who know about these characters because, we grew up with all the reruns on Cartoon Network before they started hitting big with all of their programs, their original programs back in the 90s, then all this stuff is just really odd. Like, first of all, like, as you were mentioning before about, like, Dee Dee Sykes, in which she's one of the teen angels with Captain Caveman, but she's not really, because she's teaming up with, Blue Falcon and Dynamite.
She's a weird redundancy character.
Yeah, because, like, you have her and Dynamite as just sort of, like, the techs of the team.
You don't need 2 techies on the team. The whole point to a team dynamic is everybody has a role to fill, and the dog is literally a frickin' robot and a computer.
Well, if you lose one tech, you have another one on standby.
But we never run into that problem narratively. And the thing is, you're writing the story, you could write it so you don't lose the tech.
That is true, so they'll always have 2 techs. That's a great idea, Nero. I'm glad you wrote Scoob.
It's like trying to make a Star Trek team, and it's like, okay, so we got Captain Kirk, and we got Spock, and we got McCoy, and then we have another Spock. That really screws up the team. I feel like, and I know there are going to be fans who are going to hate this, I feel like they should have taken Blue Falcon and Dee Dee Sykes and folded them together into one character called Blue Falcon, and Dee Dee Sykes could have been the mixed race daughter of the original Blue Falcon.
Sure.
And she has to deal with the legacy of her father, and she doesn't think she'll ever, like, I'll never amount to what my father is. And you could even make a reference where it's like, look how much hate I'm getting online, and it's like, not my Blue Falcon, Girl Falcon, please. And it's just like, she's like, it's just so hard to want to like try and be this hero, and like everybody hates you for it. And then you could have that like heartwarming scene where Dynamite's like, you don't have to be the Blue Falcon. You could just be your own person. You're not your dad, and you don't have to be your dad. And then she chooses to form the Teen Angels and teams up with Captain Frickin' Caveman.
That is a great idea, because you remember when the Rocketeer series was being announced, and it was like, oh, we're gonna focus on like the Rocketeer's daughter or something, and everybody just went so angry online, saying like, oh, like, why are you doing this? Why are you making the the Rocketeer a girl? Why are you doing this? Not my Rocketeer. It's like, this is ridiculous.
Not my Rocketeer, that movie that bombed at the box office for Disney, so the fact it's getting a show at all is a miracle.
Very true.
Not my Rocketeer. Oh, I'm sorry, were you there? Were you there to watch our very successful movie? Oh, right, you weren't.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing, is like, the idea of a shared Hanna-Barbera universe is a great idea. It's a phenomenal concept. But they don't want to put in the time, man.
Yeah, and they don't really develop any of the ideas, because really, even though this movie is more focused on the Blue Falcon aspects, what can you really say about Brian's character arc?
I didn't really like it, to be quite honest. I just felt he was just too obnoxious, too cocky, too overconfident, just relying too much on himself. And, I mean, with the fact that Dee Dee and Dynamite are pretty much just picking up the slack of him, and, he's trying to prove to himself, is like, I'm not, going to be in my dad's shadow or whatever. I'm going to be my own hero in my own way. And it doesn't get that way like towards the end of the movie, but even then I just didn't really feel like satisfied.
Yeah, because his character arc only happens at like key beats and not actually throughout the movie.
It happened because that's what that character was designed to do.
Yeah, he's cocky at the beginning, then he has to talk with Shaggy where he just goes, oh, and rolls away.
Which, by the way, isn't as heartfelt as it should have been, where it's like, you have big shoes to fill. I mean, your father is essentially the Batman of this universe. Your father was an icon to people, and having to live up to that standard must be very difficult. And then he's just like, he treats it. It's so funny because freaking BVS actually kind of made it better, which is ironic because of how sad Superman is in that movie. But like Superman being like, it's hard to be Superman because people expect so much of you. Brian is just like, I just want to hang out on my party Falcon and like shit. Brian is, and I don't know if this was intentional or not, but it's certainly what it came off like. He is the Logan Paul of like characters, where he's like this rich jerk who thinks he could do what he wants, get away with whatever he wants, and doesn't have to put in the work.
Until the very end, where he just says, like, wow, I must really work hard. Dynamite comes up and like, you gotta work hard. Okay, yeah.
Which I love, by the way, and I know this wasn't intentional, but it's so funny that it happened. It's really funny that there is a hard-working black woman busting her ass for an incompetent, white, rich 1%. And he's an idiot that gets all the credit.
Yeah.
And I know that's not intentional. I know nobody sat in an office at Warner Brothers and was like, it wouldn't be great if there was this hardworking black girl getting screwed over by this rich white man. I know that wasn't talked about in the office, but it's really funny how that's like, wow, it's really funny how none of you noticed that. Where it's like, it's really weird, like, she's busting her ass, she's very smart, she's very good with tech, and then you have this idiot who just sits around and eats ice cream and complains and goes on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and posting stuff on Instagram with his hashtags, and he's like, he's essentially like, oh, where's my music? Where's my balloons? It's all about celebrating me.
And I didn't do anything. Oh yeah, you know what every person watching a film loves is when there's some self-aggrandizing jackass who thinks they're the greatest thing ever, and they aren't. And it's funny. You know why they did this? Because Iron Man was a self-aggrandizing jackass. The only difference is Tony Stark realized, oh, I created weapons of mass destruction. I'm the asshole. And then he got humility. Because that's the Marvel method is you're some asshole. Something happens to you, and then you stop being an asshole. Because like Iron Man, weapons manufacturer, gets shrapnel in his chest. Oh, what I do kills people. I'm not going to do this anymore. Thor, I'm an arrogant, racist god. Gets the hammer taken away. Needs to learn humility. Can lift the hammer again. Spider-Man, I got these powers. I can do whatever I want. Blammo! My uncle's dead. I should be responsible.
And Blue Falcon. End of the movie, he learns his lesson.
Because that's the beat.
Yep.
Not because it's organic, not because Brian genuinely changed or grew throughout the narrative, but because that's the beat they wanted to cover. That Brian's like, they want Brian to be a Marvel character, which what they should have leaned into, they should lean into him being like a DC character, which they can't even get that right currently. But the idea about a DC character is you're an icon first. Wonder Woman doesn't need to learn to be Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman comes from an island known as Paradise Island. It is a beautiful place where there's no war, everybody loves each other, everybody gets along and puts together their efforts to make everything better. She doesn't come to man's world, to the mortal realm, and impose that ideology on us. She wants us to choose to take the path to be better people. Blue Falcon should have been that kind of superhero. Like, you could have had, actually, the original Blue Falcon. I believe he's called Owen Garrison in the Scooby-Doo crossover animated movie, the original one, because he's named after Gary Owens. And you could have had Owen Garrison be like, I'm getting old, and I can't do this anymore. I can't be a superhero anymore. There needs to be a new generation of heroes.
Yeah, and you know what? They did the same thing with Batman Beyond.
Yeah, no fooling. And even that's still better handled, because Bruce got old. Bruce knew he couldn't be Batman anymore the moment he realized he had to use a gun.
Yeah.
And the moment he had to use a gun, he's like, I can't be Batman anymore. I used a gun to put fear in the hearts of criminals. Now, mind you, it's a very effective method because nobody wants to be shot. That said, though, being Batman means you use theatrics because criminals are superstitious and cowardly people. So you have to use theatrics to scare them. And the fact he had to use a gun shows he can't be Batman anymore. So then a young pup breaks into the Batcave, steals the suit. Now, if Brian was like Terry McGinnis, and he was some jackass who broke into, like, the Falcon's nest and stole the costume, that could have been a movie in and of itself. And then you have Owen Garrison being, like, his oracle. You know, the guy in the chair teaching him and training him. And then, like, maybe because, the old Dynamite, maybe it got damaged. Like Owen Garrison got old. He got Or, you want to do something really, really gut-wrenching, Brian is such a screw-up and such a showboat that eventually Dynamite has to save him and gets utterly destroyed. And that teaches him, you're irresponsible. You're not a hero. You're a glory hound. Heroes do not put themselves above people. They put themselves in front of people like a shield. And you could have had a great parallel because there's a wonderful scene, of course they botch it, there's a wonderful scene where Fred takes a hubcap from the Mystery Machine and wears it like Captain America's shield, and he goes to help and defend his friends, and then they turned it into a joke. That scene should have been epic, where Fred saves them, and then Dynamite says, look at him. He doesn't have a power suit like you. He doesn't have any of the resources you have. And he's still trying to be a hero. He's more of a hero than you'll ever be, Brian. Because it doesn't matter how much money you have.
Yeah, he should be pointing to the entire mystery gang to basically show, like, these are just regular kids trying to save the world. They're just kids trying to solve a mystery, and they're still putting themselves out there more than Brian is.
You have a supercomputer. You have me, Brian. That girl has a laptop, and she's more capable than you are.
Like, they really should have pushed that angle of it, but they really don't. They just sort of skate by it.
Well, and the funny thing is, they all have something that Brian lacks, where it's like, Fred's more courageous than you are. Daphne's more empathetic than you are. Velma's more intelligent than you are. And Scooby and Shaggy work together.
And they're braver than you are. Just simply put, they're cowards, but they're so much braver that they'll put themselves in the line of fire.
It's not hard to create a shared universe. It really isn't. It's easy.
It needs to be thought out, because there are all a bunch of great ideas in this movie. Like, that's sort of what makes our final thoughts basically just boil down to just like, there are a bunch of good ideas, but we're so disappointed it just executed them all horribly.
Even the parallel concept of the movie, where it's like, it's 3 stories about a boy and his dog. Scooby and Shaggy, Dynamite and the Blue Falcon, Dick Dastardly and Muttley. Like, oh, there's a really good theme there. Nothing.
Yeah, really and it just really pisses me off that, you have Dick Dastardly, who's like, and he's probably like the best thing about this movie. And not only is Muttley barely in it, I mean, he's like not even in it until the 3rd act because he's trapped in that,
he's in hell.
Yeah, he's trapped in hell essentially. But he's surrounded by like these little tiny robots that are obviously a reference to a ripoff of the Minions from Despicable Me. Again,
I asked Taylor this, where I said, I don't understand why he designed the robots to look cute. Like, I understand why they look like that, because you can sell those as toys and action figures and plushies. That's why they look like that. But in universe, why would Dick Dastardly spend time, and this goes back to my point of why this is such a missed opportunity. Dick Dastardly should not have been the one that has like all these robot minions. Dr. Zinn should have hired Dick Dastardly as a mercenary and been like, I will fund you to get me these skulls I need, and I need you to get them before the Quest family does.
Or if you just bring it back to this sort of movie, don't make them like the cute little robots. Make him have a Muttley bot.
Yeah, have him have like a robot dog.
Because the whole point of Dick's character in that is that he's so desperate to get Muttley back, he's willing to do anything for it. Despite how much of a horrible person he is, he loves his dog.
I'd argue he's actually one of the better people in terms of, like, the fact that you have a scene where he opens... First off, he moves heaven and earth to get into hell. And he doesn't give a damn about the consequences. That's the only part that makes him a villain. He goes into hell. Mounds of treasure as far as the eye can see. Something that rivals what Smaug has in The Hobbit. He pushes aside gold statues. He shoves aside golden trunks filled with bars and gems and jewels. And his first idea is, I'm going to go get my dog. And then there's a scene where Shaggy has the balls, and he must have the biggest ones on set, to be like, Scoob, you took off your collar. Yeah, you gave me the nod that was okay. I didn't think you would do it. You turned their friendship into a toxic one?
And you turned the toxic relationship of Dick and Muttley into an unhealthy one. Oops.
That's so screwed up. Like, how? This thing's been in development since, like, 2015, and you know there had to be so many changes. There are 4 writers on this. I'm telling you, those first 12 minutes, probably from the original project.
Yeah.
And then, we like this part. Superheroes are very popular now.
Let's get rid of Jabberjaw. Let's get rid of all the wacky races except for Dick, and there we go.
Yeah, I mean, like, in addition to those 4 writers, there were 3 screenwriters as well. I mean, 3 people who came up with the story. So essentially, you have 7 writers. Yeah, and it was essentially like, oh, we're going to throw a whole bunch of stuff on the wall to see what sticks. Because there's like 3 or 4 different stories that are going on. You have the story with Scooby and Shaggy. You have the development of Mystery Inc. You have the whole, we need to find the 3 skulls so that, we can prevent Dick Dastardly from opening up the gates of hell so that he can be able to gain a whole bunch of fortunes and get his dog back. And, in the mix, we have Captain Caveman. And in the mix, we have a whole bunch of these other characters that are going to probably be around later, maybe. I don't know.
That's another thing, by the way. For a shared universe concept, why is it when they went to go fight Cerberus, they didn't just take Captain Caveman with them to fight?
Why did they throw Captain Caveman away as soon as he was featured?
Oh, he was in it. We've built a shared universe. Not really, no. He should have been brought to the fight. Like, that should have been part of the point. It's even weirder than during the end credits where it's like, and he joined Blue Falcon's team. And it's like, so he went back to the island after... Which, Blue Falcon, by the way, who, when he went to go get the Slag Hoople, and they have to defeat the champion in order to get it, his response was, Scooby, this is great. I can beat the crap out of this little guy. That's...
heroic.
That's your hero. like, that's why I get so mad at BVS, where it's like, they want Batman to be so much, like, deeper than he is in that movie, where it's like, you don't understand. Batman's been pushed to his limits. No, you don't understand. Batman psychotically takes a spear made of kryptonite and cuts Superman's cheek and then presses down on his throat because he wants to be in power. Like, he wants to show Superman, it's like, you're nothing special. You're not even a man. Like, that's a Predator approach to dominating somebody, to show them, I'm in control, not you, you filthy alien. I'm the one in charge. And it's like, that's not a sympathetic character who like, feels vulnerable and is, like, tragically lost his way. That's a psychopath. And that's ironically the same problem here, where it's like, Scooby and Shaggy's friendship's being tested. Is it? Because from that one scene alone of, like, you said I could remove my collar. Yeah, but I didn't think you were, like, going to. You don't give your friend the option to do something, and then when they didn't pick the choice you wanted, you get to throw that in their face. That's what a scumbag does. That's not what a friend does.
Yeah, and then there's also that scene in which, like, he's forcing, Scooby to, like, stay with him on the Blue Falcon ship, and he's like, oh, you have a choice. It's either them or me. It's like, it's either, you either want to be a hero or you want to be, a chicken like me. It's like, and then Scooby's like, hey, that's not fair. And then Shaggy's like, yeah, but you've been my friend for a long time. And, you become so stuck up ever since you became a hero, ever since you found out that you were the key to everything. And yeah, I mean, it does come across as pretty mean sometimes.
Well, even then, it's like making Scooby the special. is such a anytime you make a story where like somebody's the chosen one, any relatability instantly. This is why like Man of Steel doesn't work, where it's like, isn't it hard being Jesus? Oh, oh yeah, that's relatable. We all know what it's like to be a Christ figure for millions, right?
Like the problem there like boils down to the one idea where it's just like the two live action Scooby-Doo movies did the relationship far better.
And their Fred is awful.
Yep, their actual friendship breaking down was actually a lot more, real and such, not manufactured and everything. The live action movies that most people pan as just like being totally awful actually do the characters better justice than Scoob does.
It does.
Just the idea in Monsters Unleashed where it's like, Freddy, Freddy is the brawn, Daphne's the empathy, Velma's the brains. Scoob, what did we do? We ran like cowards. And here's the thing: you want to do a good story with that, you have a moment where they're on a job together, they're solving a mystery, and their cowardice gets somebody hurt. Like Fred breaks his arm, and like again, it doesn't have to be like the most life-threatening thing ever. Like Fred breaks his arm, it will eventually heal, he'll be fine. But the idea is like Freddy will be in a cast for the remainder of the movie, and Scooby and Shaggy have to rectify because we were cowards. Freddy got hurt. We need to be better.
Yeah, like to build a relationship within a movie, you need to show like tangible growth, tangible changes, and all that sort of stuff. In Scoob, we never get that sort of tangible like flow throughout the entire movie. It's mostly just there until the end.
It's script beats. It's it's like if you made a cause and effect web. It's like cause effect. Where's the in between? That's why to me, I'll always bring up this scene as something I love. In Princess and the Frog, there is a phenomenal scene where Prince Naveen is in the bog with Tiana, and they're just cooking. And she's like, "Can you chop up those mushrooms for me?" And he's like, "I don't know how to." "What do you mean you don't know how to?" Where I come from, we have servants. They do everything for you. Comb your hair, give you your clothes, brush your teeth. My parents cut me off entirely. Oh, that must be so rough. And I realized something. I don't know how to do anything by myself. Oh, here's a very human scene where this character acknowledges their fault and then wants to be better.
And that's an in-between scene.
Yeah, like, there's no in-betweens. Everything is, we could set it up and then we'll just give you the end. Well, you need an in-between, though. There needs to be a transitional stage. Like, even with Dick Dastardly, there's transition where it's like, he's first talking to, like, his little rotten robots, and he's just like, you robots are incompetent, and he's got, like, a picture of Muttley, and he's like, Muttley would always, maybe he wouldn't always get the job done, but he always gave 110%. And it's just heartfelt moment where it's like he's clearly missing his dog.
Oh my god, that's so true. There's more in-between scenes with Dick talking about Muttley. He even has one with Mystery Inc. after he captures them.
Exactly.
He looks like he's gonna cry. And the thing is, they set it up so funny where it's like, Muttley volunteered to go first, and it's like, of course he shoves Muttley to go first. Like, he's still a villain. He's Dick Dastardly. He's a jerk. Yeah. But like, the moment Muttley couldn't come back, he was horrified. He was horrified and frightened. Because he of course he was a dick at first, because it's like, well, he'll come back.
It's like, yeah, he'll be fine as long as he doesn't like explode or anything like that. I'm fine with it.
Like, and that's the thing is like, Dick Dastardly is a more endearing protagonist than anyone else in the movie. And the irony now is, for a setup for a shared universe, the Twitter is lighting up right now where people are like, when are we going to get a Dick Dastardly movie? So is this a win for Warner Brothers, where it's like, I love how nobody cares about another Scooby-Doo movie or a Blue Falcon movie, but everyone's like, when are we getting a Dick Dastardly Muttley movie?
Okay, yeah. I want to go into this segment right now because this is actually really interesting. So I'm sure that you guys know that the last movie in the current DC continuity is releasing. And they're going to be moving over to either another continuity or they're taking a break, but I don't know. I mean, I think it's like, DC Apocalypse something. I'm not sure what it's called.
Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. It's 5 freaking words long. I watched it.
And was it a good movie to end off the?
Hell no.
Okay then.
A lot of people dying.
I love. By the way, I love how Warner Brothers is always unintentionally racist because they were like, back when they were trying to push the New 52, which was a big relaunch at the comic company. They turned Wally West. For those of you who don't know, Wally West is the Flash you guys might remember from that Justice League cartoon you all probably like. Like the ginger that was like best friends with Jon Stewart, the Green Lantern who's a black guy.
Yeah.
When New 52 happened, they brought back Wally West and they made him a troubled urban youth.
Of course they did.
So they race bent him and people were pissed. DC, of course, was like, that's because you hate black people, not because we took a white character and made him black. So then when Rebirth happened, they brought back the white ginger. And they were like, well, we can't get rid of the black kid now, otherwise people are going to call us racist. So we'll just keep him around. He'll be Wallace West, and then the ginger will be Wally West. Okay, fine. Wallace's first debut in an animated film is him being a corpse in Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, where you see a dead little black kid.
Oh, of course.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I love how Warner Brothers is like constantly unawarely racist. It's like they come out, guys, check out this awesome hoodie I got. And then they pull up the hood and it's white and very pointy. And you're just like, dude, no. Dude, don't wear that.
I didn't even put on the hood.
And it's just like, dude, don't do that. So, look how cool this hood is. No. What are you doing? It was the whole point of that movie, which rumor has it was solely based on what they were going to do with their DC live action films. They were going to go darker and darker, and then they were just going to reboot it.
Oh.
Which to me, I hate that because your end game for your story then is all the story you've been investing in, we're going to throw it out and just give you a new one. Well, why don't we just go with the new stuff? And skip. Why are you giving me some weird middleman? That's what it feels like. And now I'm wondering with this movie, I'm wondering if Scoob gets a sequel, because I've heard rumor is it's doing well on the rental market. If that's the case and it is doing well, is the next movie just going to be Scoob 2? Is Blue Falcon going to get his own spinoff out of this? Is Captain Caveman supposed to get his own spinoff out of this?
I don't know.
Like what's the end result?
Movie.
Yeah.
Taylor, hey man, I came here because I wanted a fully animated Scooby-Doo film, and I didn't even get that.
I didn't get that at all, except for the first 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Like I would put that onto a DVD and be like, I'll just rewatch this.
Taylor came into Subway. I want like a foot-long sub with cheese and turkey, and some lettuce and a cucumber and some tomato. I see you gave me you gave me a pie tin, and it's filled with is that pencil shavings? Well, it's got the makings of the things you like. Not really, no.
Yeah, well, the reason why I brought this up is because they're hoping that Scoob does really well, because Warner Brothers is starting to run out of their animated properties. I mean,
I don't know how.
As I mentioned before, the DC stuff. They already released the last one in the current continuity, and then there's the Mortal Kombat Scorpion's Revenge movie that they released not too long ago.
That was fun.
Yeah. And there's even talks of more of them. So if you guys remember, which I'm sorry for bringing this up for anybody who's listening. So last year on Scooby-Doo's 50th anniversary, they released Return to Zombie Island.
Look, Zombie Island was something. But Return to Zombie Island was something.
A general consensus from people saying it was the worst Scooby-Doo movie ever made. So the fact that it was the worst one in a milestone anniversary, which I have not seen since Sonic 06. So the fact that everybody hated that movie, a lot of people were hoping that Scoob would be really good and maybe revitalize the franchise, bring it in a completely different direction, similar to what Zombie Island did when it came out. But I don't see that happening.
I'd like to a little fun little side fact.
Sure.
Hanna-Barbera got in trouble with Zombie Island because of how it respected the intellect of the viewers, and they took, not only did they take it in a dramatic direction, like it was nothing new to be like, this has supernatural creatures. Boo Brothers came out before. Ghoul School came out before. Scooby and Shaggy have met real-life supernatural crap long before Zombie Island.
And they met them in the shows as well.
And they met them in the shows. I mean, like the Curse of the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo. They literally 13 different ghosts. They met, for fuck's sake, their warlock friend was Vincent Price.
Yeah.
So, in that regard, in terms of actually having supernatural stuff, that wasn't new. For God's sakes, I swear, Reluctant Werewolf, that had to be a Wacky Racer script. And then they were like, no one's going to watch a Wacky Racers animated film. But what if we put Scooby-Doo in it? Which is ironic now, because now it's like, are we going to get a Wacky Racers movie? Because Dick Dastardly was in this? Like, what? Are we gonna build up to a movie that's just one long-ass boring race? Like, good luck. I mean, you guys can barely get cartoon. They only had 2 cartoon shows of that thing. Like, I want you both to sit and think about this for a minute, all right? Okay. I want you both to really think about this. Scooby-Doo has gotten 13 different shows.
Yep.
The only revitalization of Hanna-Barbera properties that have seen popular culture have been through Adult Swim. Space Ghost had a talk show. Birdman had Harvey Birdman.
And not to mention that the Birdman movie starring Michael Keaton.
Yeah, but that wasn't like the Birdman, though. That wasn't like the Hanna-Barbera guy. That wasn't like, the guy with the solar powers and everything. And
sure.
And that's the thing that's like, they have all these properties. And it's like properties nobody knows.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, Warner Brothers is treating their Hanna-Barbera properties very similar to what Sega used to do, and which, like, for all you Sega fans, do you like Gunstar Heroes? Do you like Golden Axe? Do you like Streets of Rage? Do you like Vector Man? Well, too bad. Here's your other Sonic game.
Every modern kid, I don't know what that is.
I don't know a Vector. Dude.
Which is funny because like Capcom has the reverse where it's like Devil May Cry, we got your back. Street Fighter, we got your back. Resident Evil, actually I think that's Konami. No, it is Capcom.
Yeah,
no,
it is Capcom. Yeah.
Resident Evil, Capcom, we got your back. What about Mega Man? Get the hell out. Oh, I thought we were allowed to have the things we like.
Not that thing you like.
Not that thing you like. And that's the thing is like. Hanna-Barbera, to me, is the same problem with the Warner Brothers effect, where it's like, you bank so heavily on Batman above every other property. And I understand, from a business perspective, I get it. Batman sells. That's why you do this. But the problem is, you bank so much on the Bat that you've sacrificed every other. And keep in mind, there's always new superheroes. Yeah. That's why I hate the arguments you always hear. Why aren't there any superheroes of color? There are. They don't sell very well for some reason. It's not because they're bad characters. It's not because they're heroes of color. It's because writers rotate. That's the reality. Is because the big two, especially, comic books, superhero comics, at least from DC and Marvel, are like soap operas. They don't really have real continuity. Things come and go all the time. Right now, Superman has a son. And he's in like the 31st century right now. So Superman's not even allowed to be a dad anymore.
Right.
He was like Superman was a dad to his like 12-year-old son for 2 years, and then a new writer came on and said, "I don't like that. Get him out of here." Threw him into the 31st century. Superman's not allowed to be a dad anymore. I don't like that.
Yeah.
The fact of the reality is that there are so many heroes of color, of race, of gender, and you don't hear about them.
Yeah, I mean, you don't hear about Kamala, aka,
Miss Marvel.
Miss Marvel. You don't. I mean, let's be honest. Before Enter the Spider-Verse, practically nobody knew about Miles Morales.
Oh hell no! And he's an ultimate Marvel character, so he's not even from the mainstream continuity that a vast majority of people read. He was from a separate publishing house under the Marvel lineage.
Yeah, and also, there's Riri, aka the new Iron Man. I mean, again, most people don't know about her unless you read the comic books. So, yeah, I mean, they are out there, absolutely. You just need to go look for them. And I know the argument is like, oh, people want to watch it. They don't want to read it, which, okay, fair enough.
Okay, but if books don't sell. Okay, if I'm DC, and I know for a fact Batman sells like hotcakes, but the new Blue Beetle I have, Jaime Reyes. So Jaime Reyes is a Hispanic character, and he does have a fan base. He has a very vocal fan base. Mm-hmm. Oh, Jaime's book isn't selling the amounts that need to keep him in publication. Why the hell would I greenlight a movie or an animated show? And keep in mind, DC, I'd argue, is way more risky than Marvel because they made a Swamp Thing show, a super niche horror character, and they based it off of the Alan Moore run from like the 80s.
Oh yeah, I remember.
They made a Doom Patrol. Patricia, I love the Doom Patrol. Patricia, they made a Doom Patrol show.
Wow.
The Doom, a team consisting of a literal guy called Robot Man, Negative Man, Elastigirl. There's a character in the Doom Patrol funny books called Danny the Street, who is a genderqueer sentient street. Now, if you don't know what the hell that is, I'm going to explain it very simple. Do you know what Silent Hill is?
Sure.
You know, Silent Hill is like a living city that's alive?
Yep.
Danny is like that, except he's nice.
Okay.
They are a super friendly street that calls you like honey and sugar bear, and they love you and protect you and want you to be safe and happy. And they go around the universe. They go to alien planets, they go into cities, and they pop up and they find people that society doesn't love. Mm-hmm. And then Danny takes them in because Danny loves you.
Right.
That's in a show. A sentient street is in a show. One of my favorite characters of all time, named Flex Mentallo. A literal strongman. Like, do you remember those old Charles Atlas ads? You know, don't be a wimp. And you're like at the beach, you know, don't be a Mac. I'll turn you into a man. And like the scrawny kid all of a sudden becomes like really muscular.
Yeah.
There's a superhero based on those ads called Flex Mentallo. And his ability is he was a Mac, a scrawny little loser on the beach. And he got bullied for it. And then he became a man by working out and getting musculature. Now that he's ripped and muscular, he can flex his muscles to bend reality.
Okay.
That character is in the Doom Patrol show.
That sounds awesome.
Oh, it is. He's very much like he's a very 1940s character. So he's like super friendly and like very milquetoast about everything. So like when he's like, let's have lunch, and he flexes his bicep, and then like a turkey sandwich and a cold glass of milk shows up.
Sure.
Because he's very like, you know, yay. Like, you know, he's a very old-fashioned kind of quirky superhero. That character has appeared on a show. Right. And yet for some reason, DC's like, you got this vast variety of characters. How come the only characters that you seem to give stuff to is just you almost never fully risk, where it's like, we made a Supergirl show. People just want a Superman show. Oh, well, we're going to give them that now. Okay. What about a Batman show? I think you mean Batwoman? Apparently that show's doing so bad that even the actress who plays Batwoman doesn't want to be on that show because she just quit.
Wow.
So, and that's the thing that gets me, where it's like, you go over to Marvel. Marvel's biggest risk, which I think is ludicrous, is that they're like, we made Black Panther. That was a pretty big risk, don't you think? Mm-hmm. No, but it has a black superhero. I got news for you. There have been black-led movies since like the 70s.
That's true.
Having black leads is nothing special. And it's like Captain Marvel. I think we were really groundbreaking. A female superhero? Yes, a white blonde woman was a superhero. How are you going over there at Wonder Woman? We had an Israeli former soldier play Wonder Woman. That was a bigger risk. Mm-hmm. Like, and Marvel wants to brag, we got a blonde white woman to play a main lead hero. You would have been better off if you made it Monica Rambeau. At least Monica Rambeau was black. And then you could maybe make the argument, a woman of color as a lead superhero? Isn't that pretty groundbreaking? And it's like, it's not, but they'll think it is. And that's the thing, is like, you have all these properties, but you're not doing anything with them. Even Marvel, until these movies happened, all these superheroes you're seeing at Marvel, they're losers. Right. Spider-Man sold. Spider-Man made money for that company. Iron Man? No. Look, if they didn't sell off the property to Fox, they were a loser character. If they didn't sell it to Fox or Sony, they were a loser character. They're like, Fox got the X-Men. The freaking X-Men. They got the Fantastic Four.
Yep.
You know, Universal, for some reason, has Hulk and Namor.
Yep.
And they were like, frick yeah, Namor. I'm going to choose Namor over Iron Man. Like, Captain America, Iron Man, Thor. These are the losers.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you remember, like, you know, before the movie Iron Man came out, Iron Man comics were, like, in the top 50. They weren't even, like, anywhere close to being popular.
No, he's a C-lister.
You know, call Marvel, you know, call the cinematic universe safe all you want with, like, oh, you know, the stories and the characters and all that stuff. But, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, they were responsible for taking C-listers and making them A-listers. Like, nobody knew about Guardians of the Galaxy before the movie came out.
I did, but I'm a sad little man. I remember when they announced that, I was like, Guardians of the Galaxy? You mean the raccoon in the tree? Right. You mean the guy who plays the saxophone with the 2 knives? Who are they gonna get to play Drax? I bet it's gonna be terrible. Dave Bautista? Oh my god, this is gonna be a train wreck. Oh, it's one of their best movies. Damn it! Good job though. Who wrote this crap? Who wrote this crap? James Gunn? Oh, that's the guy who made all those like old Splatterhouse movies. Wait a minute. Wasn't that guy that wrote those terrible 2 Scooby-Doo movies? Yeah. Oh, Guardians of the Galaxy is so good now. And it's hilarious because then after he got booted at Marvel, DC right away, hey, you want to do our Suicide Squad soft reboot? Great. So Suicide Squad's just going to be a soft reboot of like Guardians of the Galaxy. And the only reason I want to see his Suicide Squad is like, I got Taika Waititi and John Cena in my movie. I want to see John Cena as the polka dot man.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we're getting way off topic, but there's a point that I wanted to make across here. So now with DC going in this completely different direction when it comes to their movies, with, you know, if Scoob does, you know, apparently from what you said, you know, it's doing pretty well with the rentals online, but general consensus on, you know, people who watched the movie and critiqued it say that it was a bit of a disappointment. I think that somebody even said on Rotten Tomatoes, like, you know, how do you take something so simple and make it so convoluted?
Have you seen the DC Universe?
Yeah, exactly. But here's the thing. It's like, it's not a DC movie. It's a Scooby-Doo movie. It's essentially, you have 5 characters.
Same principle, though.
Yeah, I know.
Like, take these properties, have them coalesce together. It really is the case of like, can we get this to work? And then DC and Warner Bros. Are like, check this out. Oh, I guess we can't get it to work. You got pizza and my peanut butter and jelly. You're welcome. Oh.
Right. But I'm just actually curious, you know, if people are demanding for like, oh, we want to see, you know, Dick Dastardly in a movie. We want to see, you know, all these other characters in a movie. And then they're like, you know, we're sick and tired of Scooby-Doo at this point. It's like, do you think that maybe Warner Brothers will be finally finished with the franchise and be like, yeah, I mean, like, let's just focus on our other properties instead. You know, the Mortal Kombat animated movie did really well. Maybe DC will be doing something else. You know, all these other properties, you know, seem to, you know, generate more money and more critical acclaim. So, yeah, I mean, if Return to Zombie Island killed the franchise for a lot of people, and if Scoob is going to dig it even 6 feet under more, it's like, we could be seeing a point in which, like, nobody's going to care about this stuff anymore. And, you know, that Warner Brothers will be definitely heading toward a different direction. And I'm sure that concerns a lot of people.
Here's, and I think, Taylor, I think you'll agree with me on this. Mm-hmm. Scooby-Doo will persevere because Scooby-Doo has been reimagined, reinvented. I mean, they just did Scooby-Doo Apocalypse, 36-issue run in the comics.
Yeah, and that was actually pretty popular.
And it's if Scooby-Doo crossed over basically with the concept of Resident Evil, where a like evil conglomerate basically caused the end of the world.
Yeah.
And it was one of the most successful amongst the core principle they had was Hanna-Barbera Beyond, and the idea was let's do a bunch of comics, and the term they used was let's make darker, edgier versions of these things. Now, of course, the majority of them got canceled because nobody wants to see a darker, edgier version of the Flintstones or the Jetsons. No one wants to watch that. No one wants to watch like a miserable, dark, cynical version of the Flintstones. You want to do the Flintstones? No, the Flintstones, you make a family movie. It's all about family. It's all about Fred being a dad. It's all about Wilma being a mom. It's all about a couple keeping their life together. That's what people want. But Scooby-Doo could be any. Scooby-Doo's like Batman, because, here's a question I posed to you, Patricia.
Yep.
To you, what's Batman?
Well,
what's the correct answer in your mind? What is Batman?
Well, I mean, Batman is essentially a very lucrative, very popular superhero that he goes around, he fights crime without killing anybody. He has a whole slew of so many iconic villains that, sometimes, there will be at some points in which they would probably get overshadowed by some. Sure, that tends to happen, especially if you have a Joker or a Penguin or something like that. But, I mean, Batman is very popular for a lot of people. They really like the character. And, yeah, I mean, Batman is essentially like the Dark Event. He's he's the Dark Knight.
So let me ask you, Batman being like the Chris Nolan movies, pretty good Batman.
Sure.
Adam West, pretty good Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Which one's the right answer to Batman?
That's really hard to say. I would say that what's wrong with having both?
Exactly. There's no right answer to Batman. Batman is whatever you need him to be.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's no right answer to Scooby-Doo, just to lead off on your point. Because Scooby-Doo can't be anything. It could be Scooby-Doo Apocalypse. It could be Scooby-Doo and Zombie On. It could be any of the What's New Scooby-Doo movies, Aloha Scooby-Doo, or all that. It can be any range of that. It could be self-aware, like Be Cool Scooby-Doo. It can be more darker, like Mystery Incorporated. It can go in any direction it wants, and it can work, theoretically, in a lot of ways. It depends on the writer and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And but that's getting into minutia at that point, though, where you're like, it depends on the writer. Because it's like, is there such thing as the right sandwich? No. It depends on how you prepare it.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
A sandwich in and of itself is versatile. You could have a cheeseburger, you could have a club sandwich, you could have a BLT. That's Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo could be anything. You could put Scooby-Doo in like the year 3000, and he's a robot cowardly dog, and it's about a bunch of future hipsters that travel around in their hover van. That could be Scooby-Doo. Mm-hmm. I've always pitched Scooby-Doo meets the Flintstones. You just have them exist in the modern Stone Age, and like they're cave kids. And then, like, Scooby-Doo is a primitive primordial dog, so he kind of looks like a Smilodon, and he's huge. He's like bigger than Shaggy, and it's still like roar, and then he jumps into Shaggy's arms. And he's like still a cat. There's no wrong way to do this. I think Scooby-Doo is essentially almost eternal. You could make Scooby-Doo last forever. As for all the other Hanna-Barbera properties, you have not put in the effort for them to be vital.
Yeah, like I could see a bunch of these characters like coming back. I mean, they have Space Ghost Coast to Coast, Harvey Birdman,
the Brack Show.
Yeah, the Brack Show, exactly. Like all of these, like you can vary up your shows. I mean, like I know, and even like the New Adventures of Johnny Quest in the 90s. Even though that I know that most people don't even know what that show is about, and I know that Fred Seibert from Frederator regrets it. So yeah, it's true that there are so many shows out there for Hanna-Barbera, but it's sad that, none of them are able to stretch out. I mean, the only times in which we do get to see, the occasional, appearance of the Flintstones or the Jetsons is with, a Scooby-Doo movie.
Yeah, they're Easter eggs.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, you can't be like, I want to create this, viable shared franchise and be like, you've relegated everybody. You've not even relegated. You've isolated everybody else to being like, you're not special or you're not important enough to put time into. But you want us to be. And then you turn around and complain at them. Why aren't you better?
Yeah, and then you look at Scooby, where it's just like you do have Scoob now, which is a mixed bag, but we also still have Scoob and King Arthur's Court that's going to be coming out, I believe, close to the end of the year as well. Mm-hmm. There's already a second movie already made, and there's probably another movie already made next year.
I'd like to pitch this to you, Patricia.
Sure.
In the idea of they want to revitalize these franchises, Cartoon Network has been rumored to state that action shows, 11-minute action shows, do well on their network. Teen Titans Go, Powerpuff Girls, Thundercats Roar, the new Ben 10. with that being said, why don't they turn their Hanna-Barbera properties into those bite-sized kinds of action shows? Make a Birdman show where he fights like Mentok the Mind Taker. Make a Space Ghost show where he fights like Zorak. Like, revitalize them. Johnny Quest. I never understood why they made that show The Secret Saturdays, where it's like, it's about a family that travels around the world and like deals with like supernatural creatures and like monsters and stuff. Well, wait a minute, that sounds a lot like just make Johnny Quest. You own it.
Exactly. I think that for like the newer generations, the only reason why they would know about Johnny Quest is because it was, because the Venture Brothers.
Yeah.
So
which has done a better job keeping alive Hanna-Barbera properties indirectly than Warner Brothers.
Yeah. And this is what really disappoints me. It's like this with Scoob, because apparently that's what we were talking about. But I mean, they were trying their hardest to bring back the characters that they have neglected for decades, and the thing is that they're just essentially side characters to a Scooby film, and that's all people see them as because they don't know who any of these characters are. So the fact that they are trying to create this huge cinematic universe without proper build-up because we like some things more than others, it kind of like worries me. It's like, oh man, if the movie doesn't do very well, what's going to happen to the, the cinematic universe for these Hanna-Barbera characters? Are we never going to see them again? It's like, oh, nobody liked, Dick Dastardly or Captain Caveman or whatever. It's like, let's just mostly stick to Scooby-Doo. And even then, if the movie doesn't do very well, then people would make the argument about like, oh, maybe people are not interested in Scooby-Doo, even though they are planning on doing some more. So I don't know. I mean, I'm just going to say my final thoughts about this movie. There were some things that I did really like about it, but then there were some things that I was kind of disappointed at. Like, I felt like there were so many things that it could have been done so much better. But, I mean, to be fair, it's not the worst thing that I've seen this year. I mean, Aaron and I have already watched Onward and Trolls World Tour. And I would just say that out of all of them, at least we were able to find some things that were good about it. Like, I was able to find, the relationship between the two brothers really good, even though the movie was just simply okay with Onward. Trolls World Tour was just slightly better than the first movie, but not by much because we just found the main character super annoying and the main villain to be awesome.
It's like the Sonic movie. This is the best video game movie ever made because that bar is so high, right, man? Those Resident Evil movies, I mean, the Street Fighter movie, Super Mario Brothers, dog. How can
everyone loves those?
Yeah. But yeah. So so I didn't find this movie to be awful. I just found it to be kind of disappointing. There were some things that I really did like. I felt that Dick Dastardly was like the best thing about that movie. He was just so over the top. He had a great backstory. He had a lot of emotions.
Put Jason Isaac in anything. He's great. He's got a look. And in terms of back to the voice actor thing you mentioned, he didn't bring anything amazing or new to Dick. It was simply that you hired him to be Jason Isaac, and he was great.
Yeah.
And of course, they knew about Jason Isaacs because, going back to Harry Potter, he was Lucius Malfoy.
He's the Grand Inquisitor on Star Wars Rebels.
There you go.
He was Captain Hook in 2003, and he's phenomenal as Captain Hook.
Yeah, and also, he's also in Star Trek Discovery. So there you go.
He's good at what he does. That's why you hired him. The rest feel like it's like vanity hires.
Yeah.
You're popular because of X. We're gonna hire you. Are you right for the job? Who cares? Zac Efron, you're a name.
I am a name.
That's right. I have a name. Yes. Taylor, what are your closing thoughts? Because we'll get to me. I'm in mostly agreement with you for the majority of it, Taylor.
Sure.
Basically, the closing thoughts just for me are just like it's just flat out more disappointing than anything. Like it's really, if I rate it against all the other movies that I've seen all of them. It's very middle of the road. Like it has all the beats to basically tell a full story and everything like that, but it has no emotional connection to basically really tell it. Like you don't care about most of the characters except for like Dick and Muttley because they actually have a story that lasts throughout the entire movie. They have a follow through and everything. Like Shaggy and Scooby's whole relationship is totally manufactured. Like Brian's venture is totally manufactured. And just every other character is just pushed aside. and then some of the whole aspect of the Easter eggs, like it's a very cool thing. But when you this is just a point I want to bring up because it pissed me off about the movie. Just like, what is Captain Caveman? And just like, what's his character in this movie? Because all it seems to me is just to be Tracy Morgan.
It's Tracy Morgan, you know?
Because I saw the original Captain Caveman cartoon. I didn't see it too much, but I think I understood it enough to basically understand where it's just like, he wasn't Tracy Morgan. he was a dim-witted caveman who beat things up with his club.
Which, I mean, to be fair, he did do that in the movie.
Yeah, but he was just like, oh yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
He didn't fight like a cool monster, though. He fought an idiot. I could kick Brian's ass. and look at me. Look at me, Patricia. I'm fat. I'm short. I'm angry at life and existence itself. And even I'm like, I could take you.
Yeah, just to add the final point for Captain Caveman. Would Captain Caveman say dope?
No. I mean, most of the lingo in this movie, none of the other characters would have said. Like, really? Like, we're going to go for modern lingo? I mean, you do realize that that's going to date the movie even further.
Where did he learn it from? It's on an isolated prehistoric island. Who did he hear it from?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what? And then you have that scene in which, like, he was saying, like, oh, you know, you got cool wheels. If I knew what wheels are, it's like, what was the joke?
That he said the word wheels, but he doesn't know what they are. But if he doesn't know what they are, then he shouldn't have been able to. So it becomes like a paradox, and that's why it's funny, because it's a paradox.
Yeah, and that paradox is just the killing blow to this movie, because it's not well thought out. None of the actual references are thought out. They're just placed in there just to be like, oh, Blue Falcon's here. Oh, Dee Dee Sykes is here. It doesn't make any sense why she's here and not over there, but she's here.
Yeah.
The funny jokes are the ones that you don't expect, where it's like Shaggy complains, where he's like, well, you know, what do you want us to carry a briefcase and do our taxes? Shaggy, are you saying you don't file taxes? And then Scooby just goes, I handle all the accounting. And you're just like, that's funny. The dog does it.
Yeah, but that's more of a Scooby-Doo joke. Everything that's basically Scooby-Doo, it's actually good about it.
Yeah. Oh my God, we forgot to mention about the whole subplot about, like, oh, you know, friendship is terrible because it doesn't, you know, you can't make a marketable thing about it. So Mystery Inc. wants to be able to branch out even further. So they decided to talk to an endorser so that they can be able to branch out their business. Yeah. They contact Simon Cowell, of all people.
Because Scooby-Doo meets celebrities, Patricia. That's what Scooby-Doo does.
I know, but it's like, I haven't seen Simon Cowell animated like this since Shrek 2, and that was over 15 years ago.
And he looks terrible in the movie, by the way, because they want him to look kind of realistic while everyone has big cartoonish eyes. So he stands out as looking weird, like he sucked a lemon and his face sunk in.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I know that I know he's still doing, you know, he's still hosting like various shows where, you know, he's looking for talent and all that stuff. I know that. You know, America's Got Talent. I know he's still in that as well, and I know he's still doing his shows in the UK. I get it, but the fact that Simon Cowell is like the crux of the message about, like, friendship does not give you a good business, and then they save the world with friendship, and it was brought in by Simon Cowell, of all people. That was just weird.
I raised this to you. Was that Dick Dastardly in the opening act that intentionally split up Mystery Inc., or do you think that was just a happy coincidence on the writing bumbling to it?
You know what? Maybe it is, because if you remember where, you know, they were like unmasking, you know, Dick Dastardly, and it turned out to be Simon Cowell. It's like, maybe it was Dick Dastardly in disguise. You know, maybe he was like talking to the gang, and he saw Scooby, and he's like, ooh, maybe he's the one, you know, that I can be able to use for my plan. And then that's how, you know, he was able to find out that they were at the bowling alley, and then he sent out his little robots to attack them. So maybe Simon Cowell wasn't even there. Maybe it was Dick Dastardly in disguise this whole time. I don't know.
Would have been good if they clarified it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Taylor mentioned this right at the end, where it's like, if they were trying to say he was Simon Cowell in the opening act, the unmasking at the end comes off more like just a joke to nod at Scooby-Doo, because, like, in Scooby-Doo they unmask people. Like, that's what it feels like, because the whole movie basically trains you from the opening act. It's an Easter egg movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's why that scene's there. It's like, oh, they're doing the unmasking because that's like an Easter egg. But if that's supposed to be like part of the narrative, it becomes mixed.
Mm-hmm.
Because they basically say it's just like, it can't be Simon Cowell. He's off there doing all his judging and all that in every other place. And then they unmask him again and be like, oh, Dick Dastardly. Then when you put reality into the situation where it's just like, we never saw Simon Cowell again after that one time. It could have been him this whole time.
Well, and I guess we're supposed to infer that it was Dick, because when you get to the end of the movie, and obviously Simon Cowell was going to be the one to back Mystery Inc. to fund them for their project because he recognizes talent. But if that was Dick the entire time, that means they're not going to get funding. But they still open up the shop and get a new truck. So I guess Brian is fronting the bill for Mystery Inc., which I love. I love Taylor's response of, I don't want to owe Brian anything. like Brian's the kind of asshole that would probably lord it over you. Like, guys, can you help me out? Brian, you keep asking us for help. We have these mysteries we need to solve. Oh, I understand. I only gave you a mystery machine, and I funded your enterprise. Brian, you can't give us something and then lord it over us that you gave us something. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah,
I only gave you this.
Scoob, that's exactly how you do friendship. That's what it taught me.
But that's what Shaggy did with Scooby. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh. You know who didn't lord something over their friend? Dick Dastardly. And if he did, though, he's a villain, so it would be okay at least, because, of course, you're a scumbag. You're a bad guy.
Yeah.
Which, I gotta ask, by the way, I don't know if you heard about this, Patricia. Dan Povenmire, the voice of Doofenshmirtz and co-creator of Milo Murphy's Law and Phineas and Ferb, was an executive producer on this movie. I want to know what the hell he did.
I don't know either. And so is Chris Columbus, if you were, the director of Mrs. Doubtfire in the first two Harry Potter movies.
The good Harry Potter movies before they got sad.
Yeah. But, I mean, I don't know. That's actually a really good question. It's like, I know he was executive producing, but, I mean, was he like a creative consultant? Was he...
Did they ignore him then?
I don't know.
He's like, you guys should do this. Shut up, Disney boy. What have you done for us? I'm trying to save your damn movies. What I'm trying to do. I almost would argue, and I remember Taylor, you and I joked about this, where it's like, do you think he's the reason Dick Dastardly is so good? And it's like, oh, must be. He cut his bones writing Doofenshmirtz is such a lovable villain.
It would be great if that turned out to be true.
I think in the end of this, Patricia, here's the thing. Conceptually, still a good idea.
Yes.
Like, to me, it's a bad stepping stone, but it's only one bad stepping stone. It's not like the DC movies where it's like, you did Man of Steel, you could fix this. You doubled down on BVS, you could fix this. Suicide Squad, okay.
You burned it.
You could still, not really, but maybe fix this. We give you 2/3 of Wonder Woman. Oh, Christ. Justice League, all bets are off. Forget it. Shut it down. Shut it all down. It's dead. Aquaman. How did that make $1 billion? It's Aquaman. I love Aquaman. How? And then Shazam, who's one of my favorite superheroes of all time, gets a movie, and it's delightful. So I'd like to believe this, but I feel they're too stupid. It's like, as cynical as that sounds, and I know it's like, you don't understand the machinations of how a movie gets made. It could be a lot of hard work. That's fair. I'm not there. I don't know how hard it is. I don't know, what was the full production of Scoob. Maybe they just wanted to make a Scooby-Doo movie. According to the pitch Taylor and I heard, it was going to be them teaming up with an organization to go and solve mysteries, and then they backed out of that, and now it's a superhero movie, because superhero movies are popular, so that's what they wanted to do. Then they should have bit the bullet and maybe make a full-fledged superhero movie where it's like Ben 10 meets a superhero from the Hanna-Barbera line, because at least Ben 10 is still very popular, and him meeting other superheroes kind of works better in conjunction. Because Mystery Inc., they're not superheroes. And it's not that you can't make them into superheroes, but Mystery Inc. works on a very, very, very simple formula. 4 nebulous white kids get in their van with their dog that talks and travel around anywhere and everywhere, and they bumble into mysteries wherever they go.
I do think they can work with superheroes. It just comes back to the traditional crossover formula with them.
They have worked with superheroes. I mean, they've done so with Batman and Robin. I mean, they had a Blue Falcon movie before.
Yeah. The way to basically make it work is basically you need to make Scooby-Doo and whoever they're crossing over with equally important. If they are not equally important, it's going to flop.
Yeah, you can't say, like, we're using Scooby-Doo to sell you the idea, and then we're going to lampshade Mystery Inc. just to have it be a Blue Falcon movie. Because at the end of the day, this really is Brian's movie.
Which sucks.
Yes, because he's an asshole.
And he's just a terribly boring character.
And that's even worse. He's a boring asshole. Dick Dastardly is a legitimate asshole and entertaining.
Yeah.
Like, any concept, any idea can work. Because keep in mind, back in like the 60s, there was a idea that if we were sitting in the boardroom meeting and like some guy walked in and it's like, so, you know, Ken Spears and Joe Ruby have this idea. What do you got for me? Okay. 4 nebulous white teenagers and their talking dog get in a van, drive around and solve mysteries. What the hell?
Yeah, and that wasn't even the original pitch of the whole thing.
There was already a band.
Yeah, there were going to be a band that traveled around, and then they
they must have loved that idea because like the Impossibles, musicians. I think Jabberjaw.
And Josie and the Pussycats, musicians.
Like, they loved the notion of cool, hip, young dudes and dudettes playing music and solving mysteries.
Yeah, they probably just got pissed off and just like, I wanted music in my Scooby-Doo.
Which begs the question, we love hip, young dudes and dudettes playing music and solving mysteries. Why haven't the Hex Girls just gotten a spin-off then?
Why didn't the Hex Girl show up at the end of this movie and not Brian the DJ?
Yeah.
I thought Josie and the Pussycats were going to show up when they said they needed a DJ. I was going to be like, oh, that'd be a nice Oh, no, it's just Brian.
Yeah, that would have been great, actually. I would have loved to have seen that.
But that would have built your universe.
Yeah. At least the one thing that I am happy that I didn't see a reference to or an Easter egg was Speed Buggy. Because I hate Speed Buggy.
Speed Buggy is... What if the Mystery Machine was alive? I don't want the Mystery Machine to talk back.
I don't either. Oh my god.
Like, that sounds like the makings of a horror movie concept where, like, the Mystery Machine's like, you know, I love you, Fred. I love you too, Mystery Machine. And then it turns into, like, Christine. Or, like, the truck, like, looks like... The Mystery Machine, like, looks at Daphne and it's like, she's got to go. Fred, I tried to get in the Mystery Machine. The door closed on me. Oh, Daphne, they're automated now. You know, Mystery Machine takes care of it. I'm pretty sure she tried to hit me with the door, Fred. Daphne, I think you're overreacting.
Yeah.
Bimbo, what was that? Nothing. Some air came out of my tires. Like, see,
all right.
That already sounds like a fun pitch, doesn't it, though?
Yeah, sure. All right. Well, yeah, I think, Nero, you're the last one. Yeah, your final thoughts.
For this year, this has been the most disappointing movie I've seen. Not because of being bad, but because I'm in love with the idea. And I know it could be done. We've seen it get done. And it could always be done better. Because that not only does, like, all you have to do to copy Marvel, you just need to know likable characters, perfectly chosen casting. The stories don't have to be great. They don't have to be uber thought-provoking or even that much in terms of, like, new or innovative. They don't. You just need good characterization, good humor, and that's really it. There's no secret. There really isn't a secret. And yet they act like there's got to be something. It's like Disney has to know something we don't. No. Take your damn time. It felt like this movie happened. It's like you just want like a big shared universe right away. Like this should have been a Scooby-Doo movie where you could still keep the Blue Falcon elements, but maybe the guy who's backing them is Owen Garrison, the old Blue Falcon. And he's backing them because he knows that there needs to be a new line of superheroes, and superheroes are different than what back in his day you used to put on a costume and punch a bad guy in the face. Nowadays, sometimes all you have to do is be a really good Snoop, and that's good enough. Yeah. So, as Owen Garrison, billionaire playboy philanthropist, he is going to fund Mystery Inc. As the Blue Falcon, he's going to give them inspiration and mentorship. That's all you had to do to hold it together. And then you make it a Blue Falcon villain. I understand why you choose Dick Dastardly, because he's one of the biggest Hanna-Barbera villains. But having everything in simultaneously, doesn't mesh very well. There's no legitimate reason for Captain Caveman to be here other than they were like, see, it's a shared universe because Captain Caveman exists. You could have gone to Mystery Island and done anything. You could have met the Herculoids.
It could have just been an island that just was falling apart.
It could have been an island. Hell, if you're gonna go with like, oh, prehistoric people exist on this island, they might as well just run into the Flintstones.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been stupid, but it really is a case of like, well, if you're just gonna do this, you might as well have done that. Like even the little robots were like looked like references to Orbity. You know that.
I hate Orbity so much.
Everyone does. Hell, you would have had a better plot if like somebody stole the Great Gazoo's like reality warping powers. And he's like, you have to help me get it back, dum-dums, before everything goes topsy-turvy.
Right.
Like, and that's the thing, is like, it's a great idea. It really is. A shared universe with all these old school superheroes and stuff, great idea. Again, Future Quest presents, you will see reimaginings of these concepts, and it would knock your socks off. The way they redo Birdman, Mitor is so good in the comic version they did, where the idea was, instead of it being the original Mitor, that Mitor existed. He eventually died because he's during like prehistoric times, that character. He died. A young kid named Tyson finds his club, and that kid gets imbued with the powers of Mitor. So then this little kid holds up the club, and like just like Shazam, it's a little kid who becomes an adult, and it's almost like the kid turns into Terry Crews, but then he's in a Mitor costume. Kids would love that. Yeah. That's why so many kids gravitated to the Shazam movie. Because Superman, you made him too unrelatable. Because no little kid's sitting there, is that what it's like to be Jesus? That's so unrelatable. Being a little kid, wondering about your place in the world, what you can do. If only I could say a magic word and I could just fly away and just enjoy that. Kids can relate to that. Kids love that. Kids dream about that. Kids always dream about flying. Yeah. It's so easy and relatable. This movie wants to be a commercial, and it wants to be a commercial first. Yeah. Even the new DuckTales does a better job of building this shared quasi-universe of old Disney cartoons from the Disney afternoon better than this movie does. And I think DuckTales is doing a terrible job.
Well, all right. So I just have to say that I do agree with you, Nero. This is, out of the 3 movies that I have seen this year, this is definitely the most disappointing. With Onward, I guess maybe the second, because, you know, it's Pixar. I was expecting something. But knowing that this is the first Pixar movie that is done without John Lasseter involved, and the same guy who directed Monsters University was doing this own movie, it's like, I was expecting something competent. And I got that. I got a pretty decent movie, but not to the high standards of Pixar. But I expected Trolls World Tour to suck because I hated the first movie. I was genuinely surprised that I was able to actually find something that I liked. And then with this movie, I was hoping for something good. And what I got instead was just a movie that tried to build itself up as opposed to like have a good story with great characters doing something that we're familiar with in this epic adventure that is done theatrically, or in this case, it's done through a streaming service because you know what.
And by the way, this proves even further, theaters are so antiquated. Because like, so you could get movies that look like this. Like, would this really have looked any better in a theater? And it's like, no, not really. Like a bigger screen is not going to make this movie look visually better. It's kind of flat, really, if you watch. Like, I've watched it about 3 times now, and I'm like, it's kind of flat in terms of the animation department, where it's like, it doesn't feel as lively as like a Hanna-Barbera cartoon should be.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and to be fair, you know, they don't have the same budget as Pixar or DreamWorks where they can be able to like craft like gorgeous looking animation. I think that my favorite like shot in the movie was when Fred, Daphne, and Velma were trying to sneak into the other room so that they can communicate. Like that scene where you have like Dick in the background with his robots and them just like sneaking down with everything like really colorful with like, you know, being oranges and blacks and all that stuff. That scene looked really good. And, you know, like the close-ups of like the Blue Falcon with like, you know, the feathers and all that kind of stuff. Those things look really nice. But to me, the movie just looked okay. I mean, there was nothing that like really stood out to me personally.
Taylor and I have had this for a long time now. a lot of these animated CGI films all look kind of samey, like in an art style way, where it's like everyone feels like they sort of have the same like eyes, and like eyes, face, body structure, and then it's like you watch Captain Underpants. Captain Underpants looks so different. The Peanuts movie looks so different, and like Klaus, Patricia. Oh my God, that Italian Kiss.
Absolutely.
That movie's so beautiful. Klaus looks so unique, but like everything else kind of just looks like Pixar-y, and that's it. Where it's like everyone's just kind of got big expressive eyes, and that's it. Like no one wants to try a unique style. Like if this pulled a Klaus, where it's like it looks like the Hanna-Barbera drawings, but they're kind of almost quasi 3D rendered. That might have looked really good.
Cool.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's not to say like Scooby-Doo has never experimented with different animation, which that's not true. I mean, they've done puppets, they've done, different interpretations of the characters looking like either like really detailed or really simple looking or anything like that. So, yeah, I mean, to be fair, this is the very first time that we have seen Scooby-Doo in CGI in this huge scale. So, and the fact that it just looks simply okay, it's kind of a letdown. So, yeah, I'm just going to say bottom line to conclude this almost 2-hour podcast. My goodness. Is it worth renting for $20 or buying for $24.99? You be the judge of that. I mean, I would say no. I think it's way too overpriced. But
for rent? Hell yes, that's overpriced.
Yeah. So I would wait until the price lowers a little bit so that you can be able to watch it for yourself. I mean, if you were expecting something like that, like massive, like, the old Scooby gang are going to be doing this huge mystery, you're going to be sadly disappointed. So I'm just going to leave it off of there. All right. Well, I think that's pretty much it. So guys, once again, thank you so much for coming on by. I really do appreciate it.
No problem at all. Happy to tell our thoughts.
Yeah, happy to be here. I mean, especially like Scooby-Doo. We're obligated.
Yeah.
Let's do it until we're dead.
Or there's no more Scooby properties to be done. So
never
go away.
I'm betting right now they're already thinking of a reboot show after Guess Who.
Yeah.
Well, we'll wait and see. So yeah, as always, guys, plug and promote your stuff.
Oh yeah, well, the main thing we want to plug right now is for ToonGrin. We're doing a new cartoon corner on Scoob.
Yeah, we're doing an editorial on it because we're only going to like really try and pinpoint like a major thing, and we loosely touched on a bunch of different things during this podcast, but we just want to like touch a thing where it's like, this is why this isn't working.
It'll be the main reason why we feel that this movie did not work. Yeah. But we'll touch on plenty of the other things that we touched on here, but probably in more concise manners and with also nice editing jokes and such.
Right. Okay, well, thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. Let us know in the comments below. If you've seen Scoob, and if you have, what were your thoughts on it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Were you mixed with it? Would you like to see more? Would you like to see another character featured? So yeah, let us know. So again, thank you so much for listening. Hope to see you around soon, and take care.
Been waiting my whole life to feel the love inside my bones. Yeah, it's closer to hopeless. Now happiness ain't far from home. Oh, I can't believe